Great stuff.
So, welcome to another show and tell. I'm here today with Philip Cowell, who is poet in residence with Street Wisdom. So, I hope, Philip, you're going to tell us a little bit about what Street Wisdom is and what a poet in residence is as well.
I'm sometimes called, what's David's phrase for it? Poet at large.
Poet at large. That's very good. Yeah, very appropriate because you are at large most of the time when I've sort of come into contact with you.
Exactly. And I mentioned David then, and David, that's David Pearl, who founded Street Wisdom. Or as he says, it found him. So Street Wisdom, thank you, thank you. Hello, Sarah. Hello, everybody. So Street Wisdom is rather wonderful. It's this sort of extra string you can add to your bow as a sort of playful learner. I use it all the time. So it's a practice that you use out on the streets to bring a bit of awareness to your life, to your work, to your play. You simply tune up to the streets around you and then go on a quest. That's essentially it. So you tune up to the streets around you and then you go on a quest. And quest, now I think about it, I've never thought about it, but in a kind of games way of thinking is a kind of gamesy word, right?
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
yeah, and so the quest is essentially something that's live for you, something to do with your life, work, or play. So for example, we don't say like, maybe don't ask about the meaning of life, maybe that's too big. But also maybe like what's for lunch is too small. So it's somewhere in between. So it could be something like, what's next for, Sarah. If you were asking a question, Sarah, it might be, what's next for Sarah? And then you'd go on your quest and you'd use the streets around you now that you're tuned up as a resource, as a source of signals and signs and wonder. So the smell that you smell past the bakery might remind you of something from your past that really resonates with your question. Or a lorry might go by and it has the word refresh on it. And you're like, whoa, refresh is so significant to me right now. Or you might overhear someone talking to a friend and just a snippet of their conversation really resonates with you. So that's the idea. You've tuned up and then you go on your quest and the streets sort of give you all this delicious stuff that before would have been really, as it were, uninteresting. You would have passed it by. But because you're a little bit hyper alert, but in a really nice, gentle way, it's actually useful. And we find that people really do find better ways. That's the phrase we keep coming back to. Better ways
Right.
of living, learning, laughing, loving, and all the other words beginning with L. So that's essentially it, Sarah. But there's loads to it, and it's been going for 10 years. And David Pearl and the folk around him really have thought this through. So each of the different components have been really, really well researched and practiced. It's a really tried and tested method.
So, um, I'm getting here that sort of tuning in is a bit like becoming more aware of your surroundings, noticing things. Is that how it works? And how do you get people to do that? If it's,
Yeah,
for example, if I wander around my town, I think I know it really well. How do you get me to be surprised by it?
I love that. Surprise really is part of this. That's a really nice way of putting it, actually. Yes, so we kind of see I suppose we haven't really got many big theories, but at Street Wisdom, it's all very light touch. But I suppose we do see this thing here, the body, as a bit of a navigation system. So it's a bit like your sort of GPS. In fact, we did used to call Street Wisdom GPS for the soul, but we don't want to go too woo-woo because it does put people off. But if this is a sort of navigation system, then the tune-ups are all about really getting into your body out on the street. And so that could look a bit like a sort of mindfulness session. So we're slowing right down. So that's everything from the movements of our feet and our hands, but everything to the rate at which thoughts come into our brains and can we even slow down the speed with which our hair grows. So there's a sort of mindfulnessy element
Nothing
to
woo woo there.
yeah. and then we're really drawing to what attracts us. We're really feeling drawn. We're feeling that sort of tug on our navigation system, as it were. If you see, a packet of purple crisps that ordinarily would have been just sort of yuck, but actually you're like, wow, in the way the sunshine is sort of glinting on those Walker's crisps, no advertising, other crisps are available, then wow, in this moment, that's like, wow, that's so beautiful. And you might just even go up to it and just sort of have another look. And it can feel a bit weird, but just remember that everyone around you is pretty much, they are in their own heads, their own worlds. They're probably not tuning up right now to a street wisdom workshop. So they're really not going to notice you. So have a go.
I've noticed when I've done it, I felt a little bit self-conscious sometimes, particularly when I've been out doing the wanders with you, because I've got a phone and the phone is talking to me and I'm holding it out in front of me. But that went away pretty quickly, because
And that's part of it, right? That's part of the play, the part of the game. Like, how far can I go with that feeling of, oh, this is a bit weird? So here's a little extra. This is why, things like this are great, because I'm going to share with you a practice that David Pearl has talked about before, which isn't part of the sort of standard street wisdom experience. And you could try, your viewers, your audience could have a go, which is to sort of walk in circles outside in public. Give it a go in terms of just how far can you go with that? In terms of just feeling a bit weird. So obviously, if you're walking round the spot very, very much where you are, that's going to feel weird. So you could start off with a really big circle. Walk around a park. That's a big circle, right? That's not going to feel weird. But can you make the circle a little bit smaller? Can you go even smaller and smaller? Can you go really right up to that point? How much can you do in plain sight? I mean, that's what a lot of this is about, isn't it? It's about finding answers that are hiding in plain sight. That's why I very much see street wisdom as a game, actually, as a form of learning through game and play. Yeah.
And do you need somebody like you, a facilitator, along for the ride to help you through it, or can you do it on your own?
So I love that question. I love both ways. I personally started with having a facilitator, but street wisdom has now got these gorgeous these wonderful audio podcasts. They're you can just pop them in your ear, 15 minutes, have a go. David Pearl will talk to you directly. It's as if he's there. It's as if he's giving you it one-to-one. So you can have a go yourself right now. You can get up and go with our which we'll probably put in the link somewhere around.
Absolutely.
But I really recommend the facilitation as well, and it's all free. So this is a really key part of it, is that it's free. So we don't say, it's not about paying attention. It's sorry, I've got it wrong, Sarah.
Not about paying for attention.
It's not about paying fees. It's paying attention. But and that's why those lines are, they don't quite work, because it's not natural. But the idea is very lovely, that this is all free. That there's so much in education these days that's so costly. We all know that the price of education has just rocketed over the last 10-15 years. And so really part of this mission is to uncover this free, invisible university that's around us all the time, aka the streets.
So what sort of questions, I guess the question I should ask is, what sort of questions have you used it to answer? Because if I ask it more broadly, you might not know, because you can't necessarily know what other people are asking, I suppose.
No, exactly. No, it's a really good question. So I said at the beginning, there's the tune-ups and the quest, but also when you have the facilitation, a free workshop, you also have the sharing, and that's a really important part of it. And so I do hear lots of people's questions. You don't have to share them, but I do get to hear people's questions. And my own personally have been around, my first one ever in 2015 was around feelings of security. It was just sort of like, how can I feel a bit more secure? And funnily enough, I did the workshop with David Pearl. He led it on the South Bank Centre in London. And funnily enough, I did the whole sort of 3 hour. It was a 3 hour workshop. They can be shorter. I did it all, and I was like, I loved this. I absolutely loved it. I loved it, but I didn't actually find any answers today. Is kind of how I was feeling. And then we had the sharings, and I was like, it's coming to my turn, and I haven't got anything, you know. And then literally just before my turn, and this is something that happens often in street wisdom, is that it just often will happen, and often at the last minute. But literally, someone walked past us with the word security on his back. He was obviously a security guard. And that moment just was like very meaningful. You know, it was just like, okay, I can actually outsource my worry here. You know, I can ask people for help. He has got my back, literally has got my back. He is sort of in
That's
that moment
awesome.
caring for me. The word security was on his back. It was such a moment of like, whoa, this kind of worked. It's kind of fun, you know, even if it didn't work, I had a great time anyway.
Mm.
But it did work. And I've used it also for, for grief, going through a personal grief. But I also use it every day for inspiration, for ideas. I do a lot of creative projects, and just going for a wander and, getting off that kind of straight and narrow and going for a bit of a wiggle is
Yeah.
just a really, really good thing to do.
So I actually went on one of your wanders yesterday. And one of the things that I noticed on my walk, which I wasn't really sure how it related to my question at the time, was I noticed a lot of fungi, and bracket fungi in particular as I was walking around. My walk wasn't very streetsy; it was a bit more urban because I run out of town pretty quickly where I live, whatever direction I walk in. But I think I've worked it out now, because my question was about how can I be less busy? How can I be less overwhelmed with the work that I'm doing? And I saw these fungi, and I thought, not quite sure how that relates. But having reflected on it a bit, I think it's to do with the fact that I can get something that's valuable out of something that's gone. So I can start to recycle a lot of the stuff that's gone before and get value out of that, rather than feeling like I'm constantly having to come up with new things and create new experiences for people, I think.
That's a
So
terrific interpretation.
yeah, so
That is it, right? Like,
yeah, I think so. I think
yeah,
so.
yeah.
I just needed, as well as the walk, I think I needed just a little bit of time to sort of sit down and go, now what was that about? Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, that's true. These things do take a bit of time.
Mm.
Also, if we'd been on more of that was an online one, which
Yeah.
we do these monthly online workshops, which are really, really nice. They're really short. They're sort of micro versions of of a sort of actual. No, they are the actual thing, but it's nice just, it's nice to do a longer one in person as well. And
Yeah.
in person, if we'd had more time, I would very much have been interested in what other people thought about your mushrooms as well. So that's what the sharing is all about. It's sort of sharing ideas, sharing interpretations.
Bouncing
We
ideas
we
off
don't
each
have a
other.
theory for you. We don't say, oh, the fungi, it's not like psychoanalysis. Oh, the fungi goes back to your childhood. We don't know as well. We're as
Yeah.
curious as you are about those fungi, but the interpretation you've just come up with, it sounds like it's pretty useful. It
Yeah.
could be pretty useful for you. And
Yes,
therefore I'd say
definitely.
it's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's great.
So how can people get involved then in street wisdom? Where do you
Lovely.
go to find out more?
It's one of my favorite questions. So go to our website. It's got all the resources you need. So www.streetwisdom.org. And there you've got, as I say, you've got those audio downloadable Spotify audio files. We haven't really got a good name for them. They're not podcasts because they are, they're set. There's four 15-minute files,
Mm-hmm.
which really give you that whole workshop experience. Be lovely to have a name for those if anyone wants to send in a name. Audio files seems very boring. So that's the sort
Wonder
of way you can
files.
start. What do you reckon, Sarah? What do you reckon?
Wonder files.
Okay, it's just happened here live. Everyone just saw that. So we're now calling them Wonder Files. I'm literally going back to David Pearl right now. Honestly, that's what they're now called. Um, So go to the website to get the Wonder Files. Have a go. Pop them in your earpods right now. Go for a wander. So you can do it straight away. Have a look online at the workshops. See if you can sign up to an online one, the monthly one that we run, or any ones of the in-person ones. Currently we've got workshops happening in the UK, in Hastings and Brixton, in South Africa, in Cape Town, in Australia, in Melbourne. We've got some coming up in the US. It's a worldwide movement. We've had workshops in over 84 countries now. We've got facilitators all over the world. There's no training to be a facilitator, so anyone can become one because it's such a simple device, technology as it were. It's free, so it's sort of anyone can take that resource and run with it or wander with it, should we say. So go have a go at the Wonder Files, have a go at a workshop if you can. There's also the blog with loads of sort of interesting extra bits, and there's the book as well. I really love the book. So David Pearl's book, Wonderful, which really goes into the sort of the behind the scenes, how we got to this point. It's a really, really beautiful book with some really, really lovely wisdom from some insightful people that David meets on the way. I would say that's pretty much a first go. Yeah.
So a lot of the people who will be watching this, because they're obviously readers of Ludogogy, will be facilitators and educators and so on. So you've already mentioned that anybody can be a facilitator. So I guess there's a lot of people who are sitting here now thinking, I would like to give that a go. What's the situation if somebody wants to use Street Wisdom, but they're using it within a commercial setting? So they're using it as part of a learning program or something like that people are paying for?
That's a really nice question. So yes, so it is all free if it's free at point of delivery. So you can run your own Street Wisdom workshop either on your own, and you don't need to tell us about it. Do it with your friends, or you can tell us about it and we'll advertise it on our website, and that's all free. If you're paying, if you're being paid to run sometimes people are running a day-long workshop, and Street Wisdom is part of it. We just ask, because it's a non-profit, we ask that you give a little bit back to Street Wisdom, and that's recommended to be 20% of the amount of the day that is the Street Wisdom. So for example, if that 6-hour day, if 3 hours is workshop, we're just asking for 20% of that half a day fee. So it doesn't work out too much, but it just helps the it depends on how much you're being paid. But
that seems absolutely fair enough to me.
It's fair enough, isn't it? Yeah, because it's it is a non-profit, and we're trying to get it out to as many people as possible. So thank you. That's a lovely question.
That's really interesting. Cool. So is there anything that I haven't asked that you think would be essential or interesting for people to know about Street Wisdom?
Oh, I love that question. I mean, I'm interested in I love Ludogogy, and I love the way that you are all thinking and playing with this idea of learning. So I mean, we've talked a bit, Sarah, about the kind of links with play and games-based learning with Street Wisdom, and content-free learning indeed as well. So really, I just it's not to say to replicate that conversation. It's somewhere else. We can probably link to it as well. But just to say, I really think it is a really playful way of approaching everyday learning. I really do use it almost every day, I would say, to solve really everyday problems, find solutions, and get new ideas. So just the idea that going to the shops could be a really playful experience. I really love, like, going to get a pint of milk. It's very different now since post Wisdom.
I suppose it's just making yourself open to inspiration at all times, isn't it? If you're treating it like that, rather than sort of head down. I'm on a mission to go and get a pint of milk, and nothing should get in my way. Just letting those little bits of inspiration seep in, I suppose.
Well, look, that's what as a sort of practical invitation to your wonderful audience. Perhaps next time you're outside, add this little bit in. So be drawn to what attracts you, and notice what doesn't. So, and that's that feeling of being drawn to. So it's like, I'm just sort of so curious about that little graffito over there on the wall. I'm just going to go up to it and have a look. That's my sort of invitation to your audience, to add that little bit of playfulness to their next time you're walking outside or going for a wander. Be drawn to what attracts you, And that bit of noticing what doesn't as well. That just adds in a sort of extra bit of like, you don't have to be drawn to everything.
No. Well, that's brilliant. Thank you so much, Philip. Didn't quite get to the bottom of what you do as a poet at large, so maybe.
That can be for next time. No, it's purely because I just love, I love words, and I've worked in the literature field and the arts my whole life. Well, my working life, and words are obviously a huge part of the streets,
Yeah,
and inspiration for me. And so when I first met David Pearl, he loves the arts, and we would do a lot of poetry together. He invited me just to be the poet in residence, and that literally means writing the odd poem inspired by my wonders. So it's a pleasure to be
excellent.
poet in residence for Street Wisdom, but I get to run workshops as well and all that sort of thing. So yeah,
Excellent. Well,
yeah.
thank you very much, and I hope that people watching this will be rushing outside to go and have a bit of a wander and get inspired.
Rush
And
outside to slow down.
yes, and as we mentioned, I'll put all the details for where to go to find out more underneath this video. Thank
Oh,
you, Philip.
thanks so much, Sarah. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.